Gus Downing, publisher and editor of the D&D Daily, and this is the LP News Network. We're here today in Washington, D.C. at the 2017 National Retail Federation's Protect Conference with Bob Moraca, CPP, CFE, MBA, and Vice President Loss Prevention for the NRF, and Rosamaria Sostilio, Vice President Loss Prevention for Barnes & Noble and past NRF LP Council Chair and current member of the LP Council's Executive Committee. The NRF is the world's largest retail trade association, representing discount department stores, home goods and specialty stores, Main Street merchants, grocers, wholesalers, chain, restaurateurs, and internet retailers from the United States and more than 45 countries. Retail is the nation's largest private sector employer, supporting 1 in 4 U.S. jobs, and that's 42 million working Americans. The NRF's loss prevention community works with retail LP professionals, law enforcement, and government agencies to protect retailers, people, assets, reputations, and brands. Led by Bob Moraca and the LP Council, comprised of retail senior leaders from across the nation, the NRF provides research and preparedness guides, coordinates industry initiatives, works with various government branches and groups on legislative issues and security issues, provides a voice for the industry with various media groups, and reports industry news through their various media outlets and on the D&D Daily itself. The NRF Protect Annual LP Conference, where we are today, is the largest event of its kind in the nation and is the leading retail-specific event for those who protect retail brands, assets, people, and profits. This conference draws attendees from a wide range of fields, including loss prevention, asset protection, IT, and cybersecurity. And with that, I'd like to thank both Rosa and Bob for being here today.
Thanks, Gus.
Thanks. Great to be here.
You know, Bob, can you share with us some of the history about this conference and how it's evolved in being really the leading conference of its kind?
I sure can, Gus. From the time I was a practitioner to now the last 4 years here, having the opportunity to lead the NRF, you know, let's just go back a decade. Now, this event's been around for over 20 years, but if you just think back about a decade, you know, we used to come to the event and some of the big issues, organized retail crime was just becoming an issue. So you had shoplifting. Workplace violence didn't mean possible terrorist attacks being a soft target for terrorism. It meant someone going postal, much more that whole, maybe a domestic that bled over into the workplace. So it was a calmer, just a more gentle time, you know. What we've seen over the last 4 years, and let me just add, used to be the LP Conference and Educational Expo. Now we rebranded 4 years ago to NRF Protect, because it kind of says it all. We protect our assets, our people, our brands. And we just refocused everything now. It's what we're doing much more on the cyber side of issues. It's a much more serious business than it ever was. We've seen a rise in aggression in retail criminals. Unfortunately, last year, we had 2 loss prevention professionals killed on the line of duty. You know, 10 years ago, that just didn't happen, you know? We've seen this cultural change in this disrespect for authority, whether it's law enforcement, you see it in the school teachers, just any authority figure. And LP folks, let's face it, we're the only other area in the country besides law enforcement where we literally take people into custody, take their civil rights away. So it's a serious business. It's gotten more serious over time. So now we're dealing with the organized retail crime, which again, by the way, in our survey was the #1 loss of shrink. It's 3 years in a row. That trend has now turned around from 20 years of doing the National Retail Security Survey. And we're working with our law enforcement partners. You know, we created the Fusion Center to really get the dialogue going that never was around before. And this year we took it to another level because we brought our mall partners in now. We have the 3 largest mall operators, Macerich, Simon Properties, and General Growth Properties now at the Fusion Center. So now you have law enforcement, the organized retail crime associations, retailers, and the mall. So we're just moving everything to a higher level, taking advantage of the serious nature of what we do. And so those changes are very obvious, and I think we're going to continue to change, looking at the risks that retailers face.
You know, let's talk about the role of the NRF LP effort itself and the value it adds to the industry and the various LP Council committees. Can you give us a description of that, please?
Sure can. You know, probably it's not first and foremost. There's 7 different committees, but one of the ones that we work on work with a lot is our Research and Education Committee. So we just released 2 days ago the National Retail Security Survey. Matter of fact, you get hot off the presses the latest glossy version, and I know you've seen it electronically, but it's fascinating this year, and we have just the latest. We see, you hear about the trend. You and I have had discussions over time about what they call the retail ice age, but we're seeing retail executives answering the question on what are their budgets like. There's only 22% of retailers are going to have any raise in budget. The other 70+% are seeing reductions and serious reductions. One of the interesting questions we added to the survey are, from a manpower standpoint, how are you doing? In order to do the job right, how many more people do you need? The average retailer said they need about 6.9 more personnel. They just don't have the people, the resources. It's the idea that shrink has gone up. I don't think it's a surprise to anybody because, sometimes, unfortunately, loss prevention gets viewed as a cost center, and retailers start having a struggle. It's short-sighted, but it's the first place they look. Where can they make some cuts? And then you see losses going up, and they make the realization, oh, we got to bring some folks back. So it's just the ebb and flow of the business cycle. But we're in that cycle right now. I'd like to think we're at a downtrend, and we're going to see that rise. Only time will tell.
What are some of the other committees that they have?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, we've got the Women in Loss Prevention Committee. Now, NRF has expanded that to women in. They've taken that, and we're proud that they're mimicking what we did in loss prevention, and we've created women in retail. So now all retail vertical markets and at every level, marketing, IT, they're all creating kind of off of what we did. So we're very, very excited about that. We're having this wonderful luncheon today, and Kathy Lanier, former chief of police in Washington, D.C., now the head of security for the NFL, is going to speak just at that luncheon. It's a great place for the women and men to come and network. They do quarterly professional development calls. We've seen a rise in this survey again in female executives. So, and Latinos and African Americans, all those diversity pieces that women in LP deal with are getting higher recognition and becoming management level in LP. So we see that nice growth, and that's where we want to see the industry going. And then we have the other committees, the Organized Retail Crime Investigators Network. We have a big breakfast, about 141 law enforcement retailers, the mall operators tomorrow morning. That'll be a big piece of the pie. And then the other committees are education. The Content Committee puts on this show. This is created by loss prevention professionals for loss prevention and asset protection professionals. Legislative committee that we're meeting here. Some of them may go visit the Hill to talk about ORC, working with the International Chiefs of Police to try to get onto some of the things that they're doing to coordinate with other agencies. So it's an active process.
And I would imagine the Content Committee is a year-long process to put this on.
We're already booking things for 2018 in Dallas. So yeah, absolutely.
Along with this study, there's, you provide a number of other LP-specific research studies and preparedness guides. Can you walk us through some of those and give us a feel for their impact?
Sure. Just to name a few, we do every year around the holidays, we do a holiday playbook where we ask retailers right after the holiday season, what could you have done better? And then we capitalize that and we get it out to them in August, so actually even before that, so they can start remember what they did last year, what they can do better. We do that at a number of different vertical markets, including LP. We do the return fraud, which by the way is a $9 billion loss issue. That's as much revenue as the NFL if you think about it. It's a huge loss. Then we do the organized retail crime in the fall, and that's where we look at the violence continuing to grow, and these are retailers telling us the latest trends. We've got our finger on the pulse, and then the National Retail Security Survey.
Right.
Then we have guidelines for active shooter. We work with the malls and Homeland Security to make sure we're creating up-to-date documents. Some of that language has changed. Used to be, now it's run, hide, fight, and used to be, evacuate, just the wording and the terminology, but constant improvement, looking for continuous improvement in all those things that retailers do, giving the retailers the guidelines and the tools to then create their own policies.
Bob, being that we're here at the NRF Protect, and for those executives that didn't make it or haven't been to one before, what are some of the highlights of the show, and can you talk to what an executive, would experience and gain from attending?
Sure, that's great. as a highlight, I'll tell you one of the things, we already spoke about a growing problem, this rise in violence. One of the things we did this year, we saw the issue, the problem, got together with our content committee, did some research, and we found a company out there named Vistalar. We partnered with them, and we've created a workshop. Just took place yesterday, a 4-hour workshop, and it's called Verbal Defense and Influence. It's kind of a concept of how to handle escalating face-to-face confrontations, help de-escalate it, hopefully even prevent a violent situation before it even starts. It's just, it's a methodology that works, and this company, Vistalar, worked with law enforcement for this first, and decades ago I was introduced to this when I was on the law enforcement side. Then they put it in, they put it in the hospitality industry. They've created a section for the hospitals and the healthcare industry. You know, the number one cause of death for women in the workplace is homicide, and that takes place in psychiatric wards and hospitals. I mean, so they've created a process there, so now we've created a very dynamic 4-hour course, and now they're creating an online course for retailers on how to de-escalate these potentially violent criminals, as well as just customers or between employees. So it's very robust. We're very, very pleased with that, and it's the first year we kicked it off, and it's got great reviews.
Good. You know, Rosamaria, I mean, as the first past chairperson, and a current member of the LP Council, can you talk to us about the council itself and the work and the value it provides for the industry?
Absolutely. The council is about 45 people strong at this time, which is amazing. When I started 34 years ago, the council was about 10 white guys. And today it's 45 diverse members of women and all different kinds of people on the council. And we work really hard. It's volunteer basis, and we're working for the retailers, really trying to help them with come up with best practices, standards. The committees that Bob talked about is a lot of the work that happens on the council. So it's really a group of individuals who, as Bob said, you know, LP people working for LP people. So it's a very dedicated group of individuals who volunteer a lot of time to try to put things like this conference together, materials together, you know, all different research. I mean, every committee does lots of work for it. So it's really a terrific council.
Yeah, great. You know,
it's come a long way.
Obviously. As Barnes & Noble is a retail member, can you talk to the value that it provides to the overall retail industry? I mean, what's the value NRF delivers to the retailers?
Absolutely. It's immense. From benchmarking to really understanding what your program is, how it benchmarks to the other organizations, and I use that information a lot as I'm trying to sell things to management. I really talk about benchmarking what other people are doing. Networking is so critical. And I learned about a year ago that networking and having a strong network is even more important than your net worth, because your network is so important. And the NRF is a place, this type of a conference is a place where you can get all that information. So it's really, you know, connecting with peers, understanding what's going on in the industry, and giving you real information that you can use in your organization. It's very, very, very valuable.
And I would imagine that one of the primary goals of the NRF is the legislative area with the lobbyists and such in Washington, D.C., Bob. I mean, is it?
It's a huge issue. Let's face it, the NRF has led the fight against this bat tax that you've heard about that was going to devastate retailers, this border adjustment tax. And I think we're going to win that issue at the end of the day. And that was going to impact those 42 million employees and you know, the 1 in 4 jobs that the NRF and the retailers provide. So, I mean, that's just one small thing. Wage and hour issues, you know, fairness to retailers, swipe fees for credit card use. At every turn, the NRF is on the leading edge, protecting not just on the loss prevention side, but throughout the industry at every market.
And also the legislative efforts towards ORC legislation is something that we've all been very close working on.
Rosamaria, you've been involved in the NRF for years and are one of the leaders of this industry. I mean, can you talk to the need for loss prevention and asset protection executives themselves to get involved and engage with the NRF and help develop and represent the industry from an association perspective?
It's critical. We're going to get out of this what we put into it. So the more participation we get, it will allow us to network and to really, become strong as an industry. So I think it's almost our responsibility to participate. And if we have one place that we can go, if you have one conference that you can go to or one association that you can participate with, I've always backed the NRF and solely the NRF. It is the gold standard. It is where, as you said, from a legislative effort to whatever we do, we're very, very strong here. And I really encourage everyone to participate. It's almost your responsibility to work together as an industry and come, we're stronger in numbers than we are individually. And regardless of your organization, whether it's Walmart, whether it's Kroger's, whether it's Saks or HBC or Barnes & Noble, whatever it is, we're all dealing with the same things.
Right.
So if we can band together and work together as a one united team, we're going to get a lot further.
Well put.
Thank you.
Rosa, Bob, thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Gus. It's an honor.
Well, that's it for this episode, ladies and gentlemen. We'd like to thank you for watching. And until next time, let's keep them all safe out there.